Joining us now, Liz Peek. Liz, she's a writer for the Financial Times. You can also follow her at Liz Peek on Twitter. And she writes a blog. Also, go to her website, lizpeek.com. Hey, Liz, good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Fired up about my vacation coming up Friday.
I can tell. And why not? You deserve it.
I know. I'm really excited. And I adore my wife, so I get to spend all this time with her. She is a very hot ticket. So we're fired up.
There you go.
Now, let's get to Trump's economic speech yesterday in Detroit, obviously trying to reset this campaign. Give me your thoughts, honest to goodness, truth be told. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was great, honestly, for two reasons. One is he didn't blow sky high when people interrupted him any number of times. And yes, now the bar has been lowered, but that was considered a mark of self-discipline. Maybe he's getting the message that he really can't flail around and act the way he did during the primaries. That's the point of a piece. It's true. He can't. He has to convince an awful lot of people that he's presidential material. And I thought the speech was excellent in terms of its content as well. He, basically embraced a lot of long-time Republican plans, issues, theories, whatever you want to call them, lower taxes, lower regulation, pro-energy, the kinds of things, by the way, that Republican governors have been very successful in implementing across the country, but that we have not implemented nationally for the last 8 years, or you could really argue the last 12 years. So I think there was a lot to like in the speech. I do think that the Obama regulatory tsunami has been a real drag on the economy. I do think the taxes need to be simplified. I really agree with all of that. I actually, before you called, I was sitting here thinking, where is all the vitriol coming from? And I mean, the stuff that's being said about Donald Trump is so hateful and so over the top that you have to imagine that people are feeling very threatened by him. And the economic speech, I mean, corporate America clearly is not in his corner because corporate America has enjoyed the benefits of these trade deals that Trump has characterized now as being very injurious to American workers. And I guess the answer is that an awful lot of forces are arrayed against him because the established order, not just to use that cliche, but I think it's really true, could be shaken by some of the stuff he wants to do. Otherwise, honestly, I'm at a loss to explain the hatefulness, which everybody seems perfectly comfortable with. I don't get it.
Give me an example of what you mean by that, Liz Peek.
Well, I mean, there are words like fascist and demagogue, bigot, etc., constantly being attached to Trump now. Look at the thing that came out from these national security people, the 50 people who signed a letter. They didn't use that kind of language, but they talked about him being temperamentally unfit for the office. That's a pretty drastic change. And this is a guy, Trump, let's remember, he's never been in jail that I know of. He's never hit somebody that I'm aware of. He blusters and bellows, but he has built a company. You can't do that if you're a complete lunatic. I'm kind of thrown by the response to Trump. And I think on the economic side and corporate side, I do get it. But then you really have to kind of say to yourself, isn't this exactly why we need to elect Donald Trump? If indeed the lobbyists and the sort of corporate money machines are really in control of this country, shouldn't we be a little worried about that? In other words, let's think about these trade deals. And I thought he did a good job at coming up with specifics. For example, the South Korean trade deal that Obama signed. It wasn't totally his negotiation, but he signed it into being with a lot of promise about how it was going to improve our trade balance with South Korea. What have we seen? South Korea's exports to the U.S. have gone up, our imports from South Korea, and our exports to South Korea have gone nowhere. So once again, we've signed a trade deal that really has hurt America. And you know what? I think Trump's right. I think we have not been addressing the world through an America First prism. That is considered very hokey, and yesterday there was a guy writing in the New York Times about how hard it is. Oh my God, it was the most loathsome article about how hard it is to deal with Trump objectively because he is a demagogue and because he brings out the worst in our nationalistic and racist policies. That was literally a sentence I can quote. What's worst about nationalism? What's worst about celebrating the United States and wanting our policies to benefit the United States? Honestly, John, I don't know. I mean, I'm just sort of sitting here thinking, what is going on that I don't get here? There's something.
You know what, Liz? That's been an amazing 10 minutes. I want to thank you for that because you got to remember to our audience, this coming from a person, Liz Peek, very intelligent, very well respected, who was very much a Trump skeptic at the beginning. But you're so right. I mean, why the vitriol? Why the hate here? You look at Susan Collins yesterday saying, I'm not going to vote for Trump. And I understand that. I mean, I got a guy here in Virginia, Scott Ridgell, that I've been at odds with. He's actually was up the street from me as a congressman voting for the Libertarian. We threw him out of the party, and he sent a letter on the eve of the Virginia primary that basically said, if you're voting for Trump tomorrow, you're too stupid to have a job. I took offense to that, and we haven't talked since, and good riddance. He's out. Collins, I get it. When you have this kind of a movement, Liz, there's going to be fallout because you're basically what Trump is doing. He is challenging the Washington insider elite cabal status quo. He's challenging the neocons. These people make billions of dollars, Liz, as you know, by having things stay as they are, by getting involved in these wars, by fomenting regime change. You got all the contractors involved in it. You got the whole war machine out there. Billions of dollars are spent, made by various people. You've got the corporate entities who take advantage of what I call the slave labor network trade, EB-15 visas, outsourcing jobs. They're making billions of dollars. Trump threatens the whole thing. I mean, you go back to trade, and I've been on the air for 6 years, basically. I was a lonely protectionist voice for a very long time, made fun of by everybody until Trump came along, basically, and was saying the same things that we were saying forever. Now you're getting this challenge, and my position is they would rather lose and elect Hillary Clinton because everything will stay the same and the money will keep flowing in, and that's it.
I mean, I think it's just really remarkable. And again, let's think about, particularly the national security thing, let's think about the Obama-Clinton foreign policy. Where are we? Okay, Afghanistan is deteriorating daily. It looks very much like we're either going to have to pull out or just basically give Afghanistan back to the Taliban, or we're going to have to recommit significant numbers of troops there.
Right.
I don't know if you're reading the latest stuff about Helmand Province, but it is really scary.
Yep.
Let's think about Syria. The worst refugee crisis in our lifetime has been engineered by a feckless Obama and by the fact that we have ceded now control of the Middle East for all intents and purposes to Vladimir Putin. People talk about Donald Trump being cozy with Vladimir Putin. Nobody could have done more to boost Putin than Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'm flummoxed, and usually I think I have a pretty good sense of the pulse of the nation. I am really now, by the way, on Susan Collins, I have met her on a couple of instances because she is the face of a group that wants to govern from the middle, and I respect that. They want to basically kind of get rid of far left, get rid of far right, and work from the middle. She is not a diehard Republican, and so I'm not at all surprised that she has done this. But for these national security guys, I mean, yes, Elliot Cohn has come out against Trump in the past. I think you're right. I don't know that it's about personal enrichment, But when you really talk about what is it that Trump is arguing for, he's arguing for our NATO allies, for example, mostly wealthy Western European nations, to pick up their agreed-to share of the NATO tab. What is wrong with that?
Nothing.
I mean, seriously, I don't really get that. I think most Americans kind of agree with that.
Yes. He's asking for the entire NATO alliance to be reevaluated because it was set up as a buffer to Soviet expansion after the Second World War. Now it's expanded, many countries in it. There's a question of what the objective is. So I think it is time to have a look at it. But
I do
look,
too.
for those, Liz, for those that have made a living in intervening in these wars and for this, I don't know what you want to call it, neoconservative or muscular foreign policy where there's never an event that these people don't want the United States sticking their nose in, whether it be the Ukraine or something else. I mean, Trump is representing a real threat to that view because he says it to people in terms that they understand. And they're like,
yeah.
I mean, I remember these wars, Liz, and, you and I go back a little bit. And I was a Republican. I was opposed to all of them. I mean, I was opposed to the first one. I'm like, why are we going in and defending Kuwait? We have no treaty with them. So I go back. I was opposed to that one. And I got thrown out of the Republican Party literally as not patriotic and all this stuff. You look at all of these wars we've gotten into, and you got to ask yourself, for what? What is better? Nothing.
Yeah.
And so this is a word.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I think you're right that there are a lot of established interests that are being challenged here, and boy, are they fighting back. I mean, the question is, with the media all in, literally, the Clinton corner, and boy, you just got to stay. This is the alternative that we're so excited about. Whatever. Can Trump really overcome this? I don't know. It's challenging.
Well, look, we're an underdog in this race. There's no question about it, especially, I mean, the media's always been on the side of the Democrats, but nothing like I've seen in the past 30 days. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah. It's like they're the offensive line for Clinton, and they're there to protect her at all costs. Now, the good news is there is a pathway for Trump here to get through all this. But you got to remember, this is a very, very robust movement that is gaining steam every day, and there's going to be people left in its wake, Susan Collins being one of them. But you look at these polling numbers, Liz, and I'm convinced beyond the shadow of a doubt, because we talk to people every day, that she is not up by 15. She's not up by 10 or 12. I think right now this race, I think the other day Reuters had it. It's about 3. It's very, very close. And if Trump can win these debates and he can keep doing what he did on Monday or whatever it was, Monday, with an economic speech, look, she has no answer for this. I mean, her rebuttal back was trickle-down economics. We have to look to our global partners. The hell does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, plus tired old ideas. I'd say tired old ideas are what we have in the White House. And she wants 4 more years of them. I mean, voters have really got to take stock and say, am I content with, A, our position in the world right now and the way things are going in the Middle East with ISIS, et cetera, and B, do we think the country's doing as well as it can? And that is really the question voters have to answer. And the answer is no. We can do better. We can do better. Look, there's no question about it. And I think if Trump can stay the course and do what you said, by the way, your open letter to Trump yesterday, I passed it on the campaign. I thought it was fantastic. It was spot on. Basically, stick to the issues that matter. I think he's going to win this election. CNN the other day and debating someone, and they were arguing about, Trump talks about bringing jobs back to the U.S., but, his ties were made in China or something. And I'm like, look, the guy was a businessman, okay? So if anybody understands how the system has been gamed at the expense of the American worker, it's Trump, because he's been in the middle of it, so he understands it. So he's the only guy to be able to stop this because he's been on the inside. He has been part of the corrupt crony system
that goes on there, he's been right in the middle of it to benefit his companies. So he understands it.
That's right. And here's the real point. What he is trying to do in his economic policy, and by the way, he's aided by Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore, and people I have a lot of admiration for, and I think the speech reflected that, is make it attractive for American companies to manufacture here.
Right.
That's the whole point. The reason, now look, it's almost impossible to overcome a wage gap such as existed 10 or 15 years ago between us and China. No question about it. You can't pay 1/100th of the wages in China that you can pay here and not be more profitable manufacturing there. But again, China's wages have come up, and ours have basically held the same. There are still countries like Vietnam which are even cheaper, which is where companies are going now. We are not going to be a contender in some industries. There's no question about it. But make it attractive for United States to be a contender in those industries, for example, that are energy intensive. Make it attractive for our energy producers to make energy cheap in the United States, which it is. But this is a kind of, unfortunately, that is one of our great geopolitical advantages that this White House has no interest in, and that Hillary Clinton has basically taken off the table. That is where the America First slogan really hits home to me. And by the way, the other thing that I really hope that Trump talks a little, he brushed over it yesterday, let's talk about education, because Hillary Clinton cannot talk about education. She is not going to be able to do anything about our dreadful public schools. And Donald Trump is aware that of the failings of our public schools, and only a Republican can come in and do something about that. By the way, that helps our businesses too. That is an American first opportunity, which, you know, Hillary Clinton, as I say, cannot possibly glom onto because the teachers' unions won't turn out for and get out the vote.
Absolutely. We're out of time. I want to thank Liz Peek for being with us. Hey, Liz, great analysis. Thank you so much.
Nice to be with you. Have a great vacation.
Thank you. I can't wait. Follow Liz Peek at Liz Peek on Twitter. Read her blog, lizpeek.com. I'll be right back.